It's a Tuesday. That's the detail you'll remember later. Not the amount, not the name of the man who called, but the fact that it was a Tuesday. You're eating breakfast. The eggs are getting cold. Your phone buzzes once, and the number is one you've memorized but never saved. You answer it on the second buzz. No greeting, just a number. 12 digits, followed by a currency code, followed by a city you've never visited. Then the line goes dead. You push the eggs aside. This is how it starts every time. Not with violence, not with threats, not with the dramatic machinery people imagine when they think about money laundering. It starts with a number, a city, a deadline that was never stated but is somehow already understood. You shower, dress in something forgettable, and open your laptop. You didn't stumble into this. That's what people get wrong. They imagine someone like you being recruited at gunpoint in a parking garage, or coerced through photographs, or trapped by debt. None of that. You were recruited at a conference in Geneva. You were 31 years old. You had a postgraduate degree in international finance, 2 years at a mid-tier consultancy in Frankfurt, and an embarrassingly precise understanding of how sovereign wealth funds move capital across jurisdictions while maintaining total plausible deniability. The man who approached you was wearing a better suit than anyone else in the room. He asked you 3 questions, only 3, and by the time you answered the third one, he was already writing a figure on the back of a business card. You asked who he worked for. He smiled and said, "Everyone." You called the number on the front of the card 2 weeks later. The work in the beginning is almost boring. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, bearer bonds routed through Luxembourg, correspondent banking relationships between institutions that, on paper, have no reason to communicate. You are, technically, a financial consultant. You have clients. You have invoices. You have a small office in Zurich with a leather chair and a window that looks out onto a canal. Your first real transaction, the one where you understood what you had actually agreed to, was $4.2 million moving from a narcotics distribution network in Guadalajara to a real estate development company in Dubai. It took you 6 days. You moved it through 11 entities across 4 continents. By the time it settled, it was clean. It was architectural. It was beautiful, in the way that a perfectly constructed lie is beautiful. You sat in your office afterward and looked at the canal for a long time. You told yourself it was just numbers. 18 months in, your fee structure changes. You're no longer working for one network. You are working carefully and compartmentally for 3. A cartel based in Sinaloa, a syndicate operating out of Eastern Europe, primarily narcotics, but also weapons, also people, and a financial operation with roots in Southeast Asia that you still don't fully understand, run by a man you have only ever spoken through, a Singaporean intermediary who communicates exclusively in encrypted voice notes. None of these 3 entities know about the other 2. This is deliberate. This is, in fact, your central value proposition. You are the layer between them, the insulation, the silence. You charge accordingly. The rules are simple. You made them yourself. Never know more than you need to know. Never ask about operations. Never meet anyone in person if a phone call will do. And never make a phone call if a message will do. And never send a message if the transfer itself can communicate everything necessary. You have a code phrase system. Not dramatic, not movie style, just a set of agreed-upon language patterns that allow you to communicate transaction parameters in what appears to be ordinary business correspondence. A reference to quarterly reconciliation means the funds are ready to move. A mention of jurisdictional complexity means there's regulatory heat and the timeline needs to shift. The phrase, "pending final review," means you've encountered a problem that requires a decision from above. In 2 years, you have used that last phrase exactly once. You do not like using it. The problem with becoming indispensable is that indispensability has gravity. By year 3, your operation has expanded. You have 2 people working beneath you. Neither knows who they actually work for. Both believe they're employed by a legitimate wealth management firm, and technically, they're right. You've built an actual firm, registered, audited. It has a website. It has a LinkedIn page. It won 1 minor industry award for innovation in cross-border wealth structuring, which made you laugh out loud when you read the email. Your total annual throughput, the amount of money you move, clean, layer, and reintegrate in a single calendar year, is somewhere north of $400 million. You don't own a yacht, you don't drive anything expensive, you live in a modest apartment in a city no one would guess. Your savings, what you actually keep, is a fraction of what passes through your hands. The rest is other people's money. You are simply the river it flows through. But rivers have banks, and you are starting to notice that yours are eroding. The call that changes things comes on a Thursday morning. You're at your desk. The number is one you've never seen before, but the encrypted prefix tells you it's been routed through the same relay network as your primary client. You answer it. The voice is American, calm, federal, you think, but not law enforcement, something colder than law enforcement. The man says your name, not your working name, your actual name, the name on your birth certificate. He pauses for exactly 2 seconds. Then he says he'd like to have a conversation, a private one. He says it in the tone of someone who has already decided where that conversation will take place and when. You asked who he represented. He smiled and said, "You already know that answer." And the terrible thing is, you do. You spend the next 48 hours doing nothing different. You move 2 transactions. You respond to 3 pieces of correspondence. You eat at the same restaurant you always eat at on Thursdays, sit at the same table, order the same thing. You do this not because you're calm, but because you understand that the moment you deviate from routine is the moment you confirm something is wrong. On the second night, you sit in your apartment with the lights off and think about the ledger. Not the financial ledger. That's clean, or as clean as it can be. You think about the other one. The one that only exists in your head, the one that tallies every decision, every reroute, every small compromise that seemed reasonable at the time and only looks like what it actually is in the aggregate. You have moved money for people who move weapons. You have moved money for people who move people. You have told yourself repeatedly that you are a technical problem solver, that the money was going to move whether or not you were the one moving it. That someone worse would do the job with someone worse's precision and the damage would be the same, only sloppier. You're very good at the logic, but in the dark, the logic sounds like what it is. You meet the American. Of course you do. He's not what you expected, which you suspect is the point. He's soft-spoken. He has a kind face. He orders coffee and doesn't touch it. He tells you that they've known about your operation for 14 months. He slides a single piece of paper across the table, a summary, 1 page, 10% of what they actually know, and lets you read it. Then he offers you something. Not immunity, not protection, something more specific. A relationship. Ongoing, mutually beneficial. They want access, not prosecution. They want to see where the money goes, and more importantly, they want to know when specific flows are about to move. Not all flows, specific ones. He names a figure. It's less than you make in a week. You understand immediately that the figure is not a payment. It is a signal. It is the American way of saying, we don't need to buy you. We already own the context you operate in. We're just formalizing what is already true. You look at the untouched coffee. You think about the voice on the phone from Guadalajara, the encrypted messages from Singapore, the Eastern European intermediary you've met twice in person, both times in cities that were not his home and not yours. both times with the casual certainty of a man who has made problems disappear before. If any of them ever found out about this conversation, not the outcome of it, just the fact that it happened, the math becomes very simple and very final. You look up at the American. He smiles. "Take your time," he says. You don't give him an answer that day. He doesn't seem surprised. You walk back to your apartment the long way, through the old quarter, past the canal, past the restaurant you always eat at on Thursdays, past the unremarkable life you've constructed around the work. You pass a man walking a dog, a woman pushing a stroller, a teenager arguing quietly into a phone. You think about the $400 million a year. You think about the untouched coffee. You think about the 3 networks that trust you with the specific kind of trust that has no forgiveness clause.